What is going on, guys? We are working on the Viper Swap 370Z. The motor is mounted, as you might have seen in the last video. So now we're going to get to some other things. We're going to head to the back and get the stuff ready for the rear-mounted radiator. And then we're also going to pull out the stock ECU and see how we're going to mount the Mega Squirt and the drive-by-wire controller, and also the Wiring Specialties CAN bus emulator thing. And the purpose of the CAN bus emulator is for it to communicate with the vehicle's CAN bus system. So I'll be able to run my factory key, I'll be able to run my factory gauges. I think that's about it, really. There's not a whole lot of factory functions on mine. On Corey's Ferrari Swap FRS, we had to do that for the power steering, but mine is hydraulic, so not as important for that. But everything else will work, keyless entry, all that nonsense. So that'll be cool. But we got to run a ton of wires for the Mega Squirt and then a couple extra wires for the drive-by-wire and whatever else needs to be hooked up. So let's get started on it. And right here you can see the Griffin radiator that we have. I don't remember the exact dimensions, but I think it's like 31 wide by 19. Corey already got the trunk floor cut for me. We're only able to cut it to here because right about here on both sides, you see, oh, it's actually right about here. On both sides is the rear subframe mounting point. So per Formula Drift rules, which is kind of what I'm building this to an extent, just because we're not allowed to cut forward of that. So we cut this section out, and we're going to cut a lot of this the rear wall out. But basically, I'm going to try to muscle it. This radiator is pretty freaking heavy. Radiator is going to go right about there. Ooh. Ooh, heavy. That'll help with the weight distribution for sure, especially once it's full of water. It's going to go here. We're going to pull some air from underneath, and then I'm also planning on pulling these and replacing them with some sort of kind of low-profile duct, which will feed air, and especially when we're drifting in one direction, that one will get a good shot of air, and then same on that side. Not going to do a NACA duct or anything, because it's not really necessary. And then we're going to exhaust all the air out the rear. So we're going to cut the whole wall out here, or a big chunk of it. Probably drill some holes here, cut out a lot of this section. And primarily the reason why I don't want to get rid of the rear window and do Lexan or anything like that is just because I want this to be a street car as much as possible. Basically the rear radiator and also the rear battery, I got this Odyssey AGM 3478. You also need that back here. But basically, I want from the outside this to kind of look like it's not a ridiculous car. Unlike my Porsche, which is just going to be ridiculous inside and out. But that's a separate story. There will be some of this sticking out of the hood. It'll probably be about right here down. Will be sticking out of the hood along with a little air filter coming down. It'll have a relatively mild exhaust exiting out the back. You know, other than that, it'll just look like a pretty cool drift car, but not anything obnoxiously crazy. Another thing I might do is just do like a little tiny scoop here, just if we need more, or if I think we need more air, but that will be determined later, so we'll figure that out when we get there. What is going on, guys? We are back to working on the Viper Swap 370Z. We're gonna be doing some stuff in the engine bay today, some wiring, some fuel system stuff. Don't know what else, so let's just get to it. So we have the intake manifold right here all pulled apart. What we're going to do is cut these things off. I don't really even know what to call them right now because I'm tired. And then we're going to fill the holes and basically shave this manifold down, and then we're going to send it off to clutch coatings to get powder coated. I don't know what color I'm going with yet, but we'll think of something cool. And I'm also going to get rid of all the roughness on here just to make it nice and smooth, and it should look a lot better like that. This big old torpedo here, and this is just soapy water. I've actually learned, somebody told me soapy water works best, and they were right. So I had a tough time because apparently I was kind of scraping the metal more than cutting the urethane or whatever this is. We got this window out. We also got that window out. I also cut a little bit more here, but that's not that big of a deal. You don't need to watch me do that. So now what I'm going to do is build the front mount for the radiator, which is going to go right there. It's just going to be some thin sheet metal. And I'm also going to cut out the brackets to go here. Basically right now what I'm thinking is just building a little like pedestal out of some thin tube, like some 1-inch 065 tube. And then just basically a little L bracket to rest the radiator on, and then I'll just build a support to go across the front, do a bunch of dimple dies in that and that, and I think it'll be pretty functional, pretty cool. So I got the brackets cut off using my hacksaw, and then I ground them down using flap disc, got them roughed in, then finished it off with the DA sander, and this is looking pretty good. We're gonna TIG weld to get those little indents filled in, that, and then I'm gonna make a plug and weld it in for that one and that hole right there. And I also decided that while I'm here, I might as well just port my intake manifold a little bit, so I'm gonna do that too because I'm an idiot. So yeah, but the overall finish is looking pretty good. I still want to get rid of that little bit of texture, just so if we do a gloss powder coat, it'll be extra glossy. And if we don't, it'll look exactly how we want it. Also got rid of the casting line like that. And that kind of got rid of that along the whole thing. I think this is going to look a million times better than it did before, that's for sure. So now what I did was turn down a piece on the lathe to fit in this hole and that hole, wherever it was. Kind of hammered them in, welded them up, ground them smooth, and that's all good. Then I also traced out this and got rid of the extra shape around the edges, so that it lines up nicely with my adapter, and took off all the extra aluminum bullshit that was there that wasn't really needed. Also ground down the weld in here, sanded that pretty smooth, rounded some edges and stuff like that. So now we're going to send these off to get powder coated, and they'll be good to go. And then we can bolt them on permanently, because that'll be a huge step, and basically the car will be ready to run by then. What is going on, guys? We are working on the Viper Swap 370Z still. We're gonna be working on the fuel system today. I got a CJM fuel return system, I guess it is, and this nifty little CJM billet fuel hat thingy. Already got a lot of the stuff pulled apart, and we got a big fuel pump. We're gonna be putting it all together and throw it in the car, along with new fuel lines, fuel pressure regulator, new fuel filter, all those goodies, the whole fuel system. So let's get started. Now right here is basically everything. I already have the stock fuel pressure, or the fuel sending unit, all torn apart. Got some stuff cut right there. Basically just following their instructions for now. I am going to be doing some modifications to the way they do it, because I am running a transfer pump, not using the stock Venturi system, which pulls fuel from the other side. So basically, I'm just gonna kind of wing it from there once I get to that point. It's all gonna fit inside the stock unit, just like that. I think might need some trimming, and I don't really know what else. I don't really know what else is gonna be required, but we're just gonna go for it. So this right here is the factory fuel pressure regulator, and this is just simply a bypass. So the fuel coming back in will just be bypassing this and going into there, because we got this Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator right here with this bracket that I built. It mounts it right in the middle of that. This fuel line works from the CJM kit. We got a fuel pressure regulator that's wired into the Mega Squirt with this plug right here. Boom, I put a little 90 on it just to make it a little cleaner. And yeah, so this bottom port will be returning to the fuel tank. This top port will be, this one's feed. And this one will be going to the fuel rail. There's just a single inlet on the fuel rail. Intake manifold is out for powder coating right now, so that is good. And that's gonna look super sick. So now the instructions are telling me I need to cut the bottom of this off to fit my Walbro 450 fuel pump. I believe that's what it is. TI Automotive TIA 400, whatever that means, I don't know. We're gonna just chop that on the bandsaw, and then it says not to chop this, but we're gonna go ahead and do that anyways. So I got this all trimmed out, got the fuel filter element pulled out of there, which is kind of weird. I also drilled these holes out and cut the little barbs off, and we got the Walbro 450 sitting in there. So I did decide to go ahead and use the Venturi stuff, whatever the fuck that is, which is this thing and this thing. And basically this will just help pull fuel from the other side, even though I also have a pump doing that, but not a big deal, can't pump too much. So basically this can now go inside here. Probably can't do it one-handed, but that goes in there, and then we're gonna put this lid with the rods that we stole out of here onto there. So we got this all back assembled, and I'm really happy with it, honestly. It's a really cool setup. I ran this wire, which is 16 gauge, over to my crossover pump. I have this right here, which is the Venturi system to kind of suck fuel from the other side. And then we got the Walbro 450 wired here with 12 gauge. I could have used 14 gauge, but I only had 12 gauge on hand, so that works totally fine. And I'll have good headroom in case I go big power or something later on. But yeah, that'll be good. So we could throw this. There's a child crying in my shop. But yeah, so basically we're gonna throw this back in the car. We're gonna have to wire this, hook up this to the factory fuel line, and then this will be to the new return line setup. So for the shifter, we have a bit of a weird problem. So this is a T56 transmission. This bolt pattern matches TR6060, but inside here is a weird connector which connects to here. This bolt pattern is unique to Vipers, some early Mustangs, or some Mustangs, I don't even know which ones, and a couple others, but basically there are no shifter relocation kits available for this, which sucks. I bought this short shifter, which is specific to Viper because it has this weird offset shit that Vipers have. So boom, but we're gonna take this off. Come on now, there we go. And then we're gonna reutilize this piece, and then I have this, which is a BMW E36 chassis mount shifter. Typically on the bottom of it, there's a little rod that's adjustable and stuff, but I cut it off, cut it down to there. And we're basically gonna chassis mount this to my car, like to the trans tunnel, about that far back. And then we're gonna have a rod that goes from here to there, and that's gonna be the shifter. So it's a little bit complicated. It's gonna be a little bit weird. Hopefully it works. I don't even know if it's gonna work, but first thing we gotta do is install that, throw this on. We should probably take the old bolts off, clean this out, and clean some of the dirt out, because there was legitimately dirt inside there, and I don't know why. But we'll get that cleaned out and toss that thing on. Now that's all together, nice and simple. I did bolt this back on just so I have access to it. I think I'm gonna just cut that little section out so I get the little square part there. And that's gonna be useless. For now, it's all just held together. I do still need to pull this plate off and re-silicone it because I did pull it off to see what was going on under there, but we'll get to that. So I got the steering rack pulled out of the way in order to make room for the new Part Shop Max steering rack relocation. This will be nice because it'll give us a lot more oil pan clearance there in the middle. We are going to lose a little bit of oil pan clearance around this area. I think overall it'll be good and helpful for us, and it'll help us with high steering angle, which is the most important thing on a drift car, of course. So got those little plates pulled off. This all ready to go. Got some lines marked, so we're going to go ahead and cut this. So now I got the Part Shop Max steering rack relocation installed. I did have to drop the whole front subframe out, and I missed that process on video, but I don't really care. I do need to come back and cut these little sections out just to get that, get some clearance there for that. But otherwise, we're looking pretty good. I got these in for the motor mounts on the chassis side. This side is clearanced for that. We got these motor mount brackets from Sen Cut Sen. They did the laser cutting and bending on that. Then I welded these two bushings and a little filler panel, so it's all fully sealed up. And I think they look pretty good. So what I did actually, so on Corey's car, I just used one of these, but since this motor is super duper heavy, I use two per side. This one is clearanced so we can get to the, that's the crank angle sensor there. And then the other side, I pushed as far forward as I could, and I also used a slightly wider bushing just for extra support. And factory, the motor mount actually went here. It worked out better to use these 3 bolt rather than these 3. So that's what I did. So now we're gonna drop it back in the car. Also got the IPSCO short throw shifter installed. Now this part right here, the only reason I bought it really is because it has like a removable piece. So I'm gonna shave this down and come up with a little bracket to go to my other shifter and basically just have a chassis mount shifter. And so I did drill a hole in the car, in the chassis for that, which is up there. I just cut my finger very badly while doing it. Let's drop the motor in, see how it fits, see how far back we can go, and see, I don't know, see what happens. And now this is the final resting place of the engine. We are almost hitting the firewall right there. We're like a 1/4 inch away. We're kind of touching the trans tunnel on a few spots, but I will hammer those out after the fact. And I got it as far back and as far down as I could possibly get it, and I'm pretty happy with the position. So now it's sitting on jack stands there, and it has a jack underneath the transmission, so I'm going to be able to make the motor mounts. Once I make the motor mounts, I'll make the trans mounts. That is going to be tomorrow's adventure because it is late and I got my boo-boo. Now I went ahead and got both motor mounts built. So boom, that one right there. We got 2 poly bushings on each side. Plate bolted to the motor from Send Cut Send. It is a laser cut 1/4 inch bent because I don't have the capabilities to do the bending on that. And then the motor mount is just a bunch of 3/16 and 1/8 inch plate welded with a bunch of holes drilled in it and such to make it look all cool. And same with over here. Motor mounts look totally different because they are totally different. This one had to clear the steering rack and column and stuff. And then I went ahead and took my IC Engine Works modeling blocks and did the first mock-up of the header over here. So now I'm going to make sure everything's equal length, or roughly, and I'll just basically have an idea of what bends I need to order for this side, and then I'll build the mock-up for this side. I'll kind of write down everything I have just to simplify it, take some pictures and whatnot. This is kind of just a first mock-up just to get bend counts and stuff, because I don't want to order too many bends or the wrong sizes, because we got a bunch of different radiuses. You got big radius there, short radius coming off the headers a bunch because we're super tightly packed. I had to cut down those flange adapters, but the other ones are full length and they all worked out pretty nicely. And it'll probably be about the same over here, except I'm not sure about this bundle because I kind of wanted this here, but I could also put this in a different spot depending on how the bundle's gonna clear. And as you can see, I did manage to get this one going out the back. It's gonna be tight. It's gonna be extremely tight. It's gonna be super annoying. It'll come off the collector and then just kind of snake up and over the steering shaft, which is right there. We got just enough room for a 3-inch pipe right there. So, hyped on that.